All right. Well, you see, at the current moment, it's actually 6:46 in the morning. I just woke up. In fact, actually, last night. Before I start getting into everything else, let me tell you. Last night, I went to bed around 8:21 to be specific. I believe so. I go to sleep. All of a sudden, like 2 hours later, an earthquake just hits. And I wake up. And man, honestly, I was half asleep, so it was like I knew that this ground was shaking like mess, but I wasn't fully awake. But it ended pretty quickly. Everything is fine. If it was a terrible, like destructive earthquake, I would have been screwed. I was like half awake. But I remember I was actually gonna stay up, like start my day at 10 p.m. because I was just wide awake. I don't know what, but yeah, very interesting earthquake. I had a whole Amber Alert that I saw post earthquake. It was kind of funny. Right now, making some coffee. But let's get into this week. So we are able to make rent. That's pretty great. We had some help from our parents. Fortunately, thank you very much to them. I will be sure to make good use of this money. I actually have an interview on Monday for an English teaching job, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it goes well. We've been applying to local jobs, we've been applying to online jobs. I don't know why it didn't like put like a status report in here. I think that's what I meant to do. No, it was like for goals. But we've been applying for local jobs, we've been applying for remote jobs. We've had to get I've had to get very specific with my search for remote jobs. It has definitely upgraded from I guess when I was like 16 or 17, you'd go to LinkedIn or whatnot. But yeah, now we're going just directly to specific websites, people that hire internationally, which of course, the problem with that is often that international hiring has international competition, but we'll try our best. And if that doesn't work out, of course, we can always look for other things. Now, I don't want my coffee to get cold, but I'm also okay with making another cup. I believe is that it. First week, I guess, of no school. Actually, I didn't exactly go to the gym yet. Usually, I'd leave around 5 o'clock, but my sleep was quite weird. Like, I remember waking up at 4:40, and I just went back to sleep. Waking up at 5:50. Yeah, now it's 6:50. But anyways, I guess we'll talk about this week's discoveries. I might actually grab this coffee. Bear with me. There we go. I drank a bit of water before this. Of course, water is a nice base. My water's right here. But yesterday I actually was on the phone for probably around a total of 12 hours, which is pretty crazy. Of course, I was initially talking to my Mercedes, of course. She was telling me about her day and whatnot. But then that call got interrupted by one of my friends, right? One of my closest friends, if not the closest. And we haven't really talked in a while, but we especially haven't played games together in a while. That's one thing that we would always do. And we just played like games for hours. His like I guess not exactly girlfriend, ex-girlfriend was there. It's she's really cool. But yeah, we were able to just play games. Honestly, yesterday looked nothing like a regular day for me. Because usually I'll wake up and be like, all right, guys, let's get to work and whatnot. But I didn't mind playing games. He's also one that I can often have a very deep conversation about. He's probably the first person outside of, I guess, this channel where I've expressed my interest, if you will, my learning path, the things I wish to learn and whatnot, my discoveries even. But yeah, that was definitely fun. I don't know if we're gonna be doing that today again. I was on the phone with him for 8 hours. So, but yeah, I guess fortunately we used to hang out a lot. Maybe not unfortunately, but we used to hang out a lot. I remember back when we first met, we would be on the phone for just like 12 hours talking about this, playing that game. It was fun. Back those good old days of few responsibilities, but now of course we are all growing up. We are moving apart in some ways, but just if we could always reconnect in these ways, it's definitely a fun thing to do. Now, let's get into this week's discoveries. I made sure to write these down. Definitely not as large as last week, I guess. Now, the first thing I have written down is assertiveness. And I believe that this came up about when I heard a man speak, and his speech sounded as if it had conviction. And no, rather, this was compared to my own voice from the last recording. Because when making those timestamps in the last recording, I of course had to listen to my voice. And my voice sounded very weird. I didn't like how it sounded. I never really liked how my voice sounds, but it sounded like I was unsure of my words or whatnot. It was quite confusing. Now, assertiveness is something that I was supposed to be keeping in mind every single day. In fact, I had a sticky note. I have a sticky note. I don't know where it is. I have a lot of sticky notes, honestly. Yeah, assertiveness. It was supposed to be something that I actively and consciously keep in mind every day. But I kind of fell out of it as the week went on. But essentially, the idea is that when I speak, usually when I speak, when I'm talking to others and whatnot, I will think about my words, as we all do, but I will overly think about my words, trying to formulate the perfect sentence or whatnot, or thinking how my words may affect others. So essentially, the idea is that, what else? I think that also you can, or rather, I may try to. I think that I can often ponder on the consequences of my words and therefore hesitate, if you will. So I think being clear and honest and just saying what I mean is essentially the core of the lesson, and not shrinking, I guess, to whatever I truly think of something. I believe that is it. I maybe read this. I state the thought, trust the thought. Yeah, I know the. Now, next I have action. Right? I don't have that pen with me. But next I have action. I am someone who can often think in his head a lot. And my goodness. And I've noticed how I have all these ideas, but nothing really gets done. Like today, this morning, I'm going to work on building this portfolio. And unfortunately, even though I've been trying to be more action focused these days, I haven't really worked on this portfolio. And I could blame it because of other things, but whatever. But there's a point where, yes, contemplating over these things is a good thing. You want an action plan, but it's an action plan. Well, you need the action. And I think I heavily lack on the action. Now, of course, the action could be stunted because, like, oh, I'm tired or whatnot. Or, oh, I don't know what. In the end, it's just all excuses, honestly. I just want to get to the work. And I honestly wish I was like some type of almost a soldier. Just keep on working. But whatever. But action, I I think action can honestly just be a very simple thing. Like action is probably to some degree almost the opposite of just sitting there and contemplating. You don't need to make a grand gesture. You don't need to do all of this. You don't need this this awakening. You just move, right? And this can go with talking to that girl or being assertive or whatever. And I think that's something that a very cautious, a very contemplative, but I think cautious is more correct. Cautious, fearful, whatever it may be. I believe that is something that prevents me from action. Also, action is just often something that is like the step that most people don't want to do. Like, we can talk about starting a business, but will you actually start the business? Right? So it's like that. Now, the next part is I have it titled as Accidental 205 Binge. I think that's pretty self explanatory. On, I think it was, yeah. Was it? On Monday morning, let's just say Monday morning. But on Monday morning, I went to the gym and, groggy, slight days. Like, all right, guys, I haven't like tested out my bench press in a while. Let's go ahead, see how this bench press is. So I go to the station. I get my 45s. All right, guys, 45s. Warm up with 135. Yup. All right, let's grab the 25s. Boom, slap those on there. We get ready. I'm like loading up my back, planting my feet, getting ready. I move that bar up. I bring it down. That thing is heavy as mess. I thought I've heard how the nervous system can affect your bench press in overall strength training, but I thought that this was just the limit. Like I knew my sleep was poor, but this was just terrible. I just could just barely move it. One rep. I had to rack that thing. I didn't know if I was tired. I didn't know what was going on. But I was like, you know what? This is 185. Like, what's wrong with me? I put that thing up. Boom. We go down. We go up one rep. We go down. We start going up. Like halfway, I had to use the safety racks. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, dang, I think I just like lost my strength. Like my sleep was that bad or something. My nutrition might have been poor. I guess I'm just like cooked. I guess I'm washed. Then I stand up. I decided to lower the weight. I think I was going to aim for 155. I look at the plate, and it turns out the 25s I loaded were actually 35s. I quite literally laughed out loud in the gym. Not too loud, but it made me laugh. Just how tired and stupid I was that I just unconsciously loaded these 35s onto the bench. Now, when I lowered it to an actual 25 plates, my goodness. When I actually loaded the 25s, 185 was so much easier. And I was even able to do, I think I did 190. No, I just did 190 that day. But honestly, I think that when it comes to my strength training in specific, I often think that I don't exactly push myself enough. Like back in the US when I would go to the gym, I went to the gym at 1 a.m. at night, right? It was just me. I would fail. I remember I would literally have to fling the weights off because I would quite literally be okay, I guess have the space to fail. No one was really there. So, but honestly, I think that I don't know. Because now I am my current limit that I'm pushing is 195. So what I'll do is I will train at a weight that I could do around 3 reps of. But I don't know. I think with this strength training, I think I'll just mix it up, right? Maybe I'm thinking about this right now. I think what I'll do is I'll mix it up. So what I would usually do is just 3 reps of whatever heavy weight I can do 3 reps of. Maybe I'll do a, occasionally throw in that 1 rep, 2 rep, that little extra weight. Now this was a 20-pound increase, but something like that, right? Now next we have storytelling and apprenticeship, and if I recall correctly, interesting. I think that an apprenticeship is messing me up. Actually, no. So I think what happened was, yes, I was talking to Mercedes on the phone, right? I was talking to Mercedes on the phone, which I guess let me take this moment to go into a little side thing. I've actually been reading The Count of Monte Cristo like a lot more, and I actually got to the point where the Count has finally met Mercedes. It was quite the reveal, honestly, because like for the longest time, he was he met this guy named Albert, and well, I don't know if well, it's not like anyone's really gonna be reading this book, no offense, but Albert was showing him around his place, I believe in Spain, and they describe the Count as someone who seems not only well versed in the various paintings that Albert showed him, but almost as if he studied these various art styles and artists. But they come into a room, I think a more personal quarter of Albert, and there's this large painting of a woman. And when Edmund sees it, he is like, I forget the exact reaction, but he's often described as having a pale face. And it seems like anytime his face actually has like some color in it, or his eyes, some anger, that's where you see more of the real Edmund, not the Count of Monte Cristo, right? But then there's another painting of the current Count and Albert's father, Fernand, right? But then after that, shortly afterwards, Edmund or the Count of Monte Cristo actually meets Fernand, the Count of whatever, the war general and what not general, but part of the Legion of Honor or whatnot, some fancy title like that. And of course, he thanks Edmund for saving his son and whatnot. But then shortly afterwards, Mercedes is actually there in the room, and she's like at cross, and she doesn't exactly seem to recognize him, which if she didn't is very much fair because it's been 20 years. They met 20 years after Edmund's imprisonment, right? Honestly, quite the unveiling. I'm interested to see what happens, and I actually found myself staying up till 1 a.m. reading this book. Hmm. Lovely. Now, storytelling apprenticeship. Let me get back into that. So Mercedes was on the phone and she was listening to a YouTube channel called Mr. Nightmare, I believe. It's just a guy that tells like these horror stories. And of course, I'm on the phone like on the verge of hanging up because like, what in the world is this? She's telling me like, oh yeah, all women like listen to stories and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm sure they do, but like what is this? But it gets to a point where I actually decide to just stop and listen to the story. But I don't exactly listen to the story, more of how the guy tells the story. Right? I listen to how he tells the story, his pacing, and how he unveils the information. And later on, the next day, I actually mimicked it as I told the story to Mercedes, if you will. And she honestly seemed quite engaged. Now, as a whole, I've somewhat gotten better at storytelling, rather, more so at finding stories to tell. I've gotten better at being able to tell stories out of anything, or make almost anything that happens to me interesting, like how I just told you about the 205 bench. Oh my goodness. But storytelling is more of an active focus right now. Right now, here's like this little thing. I have some notes where what I will do is I will tell a story. I will record myself and tell a story. And this thing is specifically for a technical progression, right? So the first thing I noticed when I was telling this story, my first story, was that my voice sounded very boring and monotone, right? So I was like, okay, let me add more engagement to my voice. And then when I did that, I noticed that I don't really properly articulate the words. So these are things just to work on. There's also the storytelling, or the story aspect of the storytelling, like the hook and whatnot, the closing. I've yet to look into that, but I will eventually. But then I was told by the GPT, of course, that the way I mimicked what I saw and what I heard is a very perfect example of apprenticeship, doing exactly what the experienced individual does. And I believe apprenticeship is one of these things I should probably actively focus on more. I think it could help me in various fields. Now, there's this next point I call vocal mood training. And this was shortly after learning about apprenticeship. How long is this recording? 22 minutes? Not bad. But this is shortly after the apprenticeship. I was like, there are many different ways to speak that I believe a lot of us aren't really good at. Like, if you were in a very, I don't know, intimate moment with your wife or whatever, your voice and your resonance and the things that you say, your pacing and whatnot. Or if you were to be some more general leader inspiring his army, right? Or if you just want to be like the life of a party or whatnot, right? Practicing these things, having energy in your voice, says me. But that's essentially it. I honestly am not going to put too much focus into that, more into the storytelling aspect. Now, next point is recovery and energy management. This is pretty huge for me. Because I remember, like, throughout this week, I would have my work session, but then I'd get, like, tired or drained or whatnot, whatever you want to say. And I tried to like push through, but I remember a few days ago, I thought I was being smart. I was like, yeah, I'll just like lay on the floor, because like being here on my desk was just like, I don't know, it was like exhausting. But I thought I'd be smart. I'd lay on the floor, I'd be on my phone, I like tried to do whatever work I could do, but then I ended up just falling asleep. So, but recovery and energy management, managing my energy and recovering so that I have energy, of course, something that is very important for me to learn. I'm looking at this white hair. Oh well. St- Step one, observe. No, it says step one was to observe, but step two is to pause and redirect. And I wrote this because I realize I've seen in myself that I can be analytical and take a look at myself. I can observe my thought processes, my emotions, my patterns, but what can happen sometimes is like if I'm caught up in a feeling, I can I can observe it, I can point it out, I can state it, but I will be like continue to be swept up in the feeling. And I believe that I found some type of importance to genuinely pausing, like just absolutely stopping yourself. Just like it's not enough to just observe and see and understand. You need to pause. Take that pause, change your mind or whatever you want to do and redirect yourself. Probably something that's easier said than done, but something to definitely work on. Now, the next point I have beyond just showing up, and this goes for a lot of things, but yesterday, yesterday my sleep was quite poor, right? But I guess maybe perhaps because I'm 19, but I don't really use 2 hours of sleep as an excuse. That's not something I will exactly accept. But yesterday, I, by some miracle, managed to get myself to go to the gym, right? Even then, even me just saying that, I said by some miracle. I wish that it was rather that I went to the gym despite how terrible it was. Like, there was no conflict in my mind. I just went. Tired or not, I just went. But essentially, my body was heavy and whatnot. I remember I even struggled. I struggled to just get myself to jump up to the pull up bar. When doing dumbbell press, I use 70s, but I decided to drop down to 65s. And even then, I was struggling. Like, it felt like genuine heavy weight for some reason. Like, I was doing heavy on the bench press. And I think, like, if I continued at that rate, my shoulder would be like injured or something. Something didn't seem right. It seemed more injury prone at the moment. But then I couldn't even manage to get myself to jump up to the pull up bar. And I just did like 2 workouts and I left. And I've been somewhat beating myself up over that. Right. Because you could say that I'm disciplined. And yes, I showed up to the gym. Yes, I did a partial workout. Not even partial. But that's just not enough for me. I want to be someone that can do everything despite the condition, right? Now I know that maybe to some extent may not be impossible as we are humans, but it's something that I do want to strive to achieve. And this kind of leads into the next point, the final point, if you will. This is a thought that I had last night and a prompt I decided to tell ChatGPT. And I might actually just pull it up. Let me take a sip. Delicious. I haven't even been awake that long. My eyes are like heavy or whatnot. Will this thing load? We'll see. Will it load? On the roll. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So last night I decided to ask ChatGPT to be as unrealistic as possible with this answer. But I asked to describe the most formidable, the most competent, the most dangerous man to never exist. What would he look like? And there are a lot of things that I was given. I actually went through everything that was said, and I think I'll just read off the things I took note of, or rather put in bold, right? One being that there is no good day or bad day. I think that speaks a lot. Like, there is no good day or bad day. Like, I've heard the mindset of, oh, every day, or I have no bad days, but I think the addition of there, I have a good day also speaks more volume, I guess. I'm sorry for the terrible explanation. He does not possess willpower, he possesses inevitability. Interesting. Now, of course, this one says, like, his mind runs at impossible speeds and whatnot. Very interesting. Every conversation branches into hundreds of futures. Every decision evaluate before the other person has finished speaking. He predicts reactions before people themselves know what they will react. Not because he can read minds, because he has modeled human nature so completely that surprise is rare. Attention never breaks. That's, of course, a big one. Attention never breaks. He could read for 30 hours without a single wandering thought. Oh, that's some iron attention, honestly. Right. Perfect memory. Now, this one, I don't have a photographic memory, but you can, of course, work on ways to help yourself remember and whatnot. But a perfect memory, nothing is forgotten. Knowledge compounds forever. Now, this one is interesting. His emotions are absolute servants. Emotions can often sway us and whatnot, but having every single emotion either fuel you or be ineffective against you is something that's quite powerful and something to honestly strive to achieve. Now, this one is more physically impossible. Perfect recovery, perfect health, infinite endurance, no illness, no injury, yada. Probably the most unrealistic in the one aspect I wasn't exactly looking for when I asked this question. I was looking more for the mental. Every setback is just new information, nothing else. Speech that is impossible to ignore. Every word being deliberate, every pause intentional. His voice is calm enough to stop panic, strong enough to command armies, yada. He cannot be manipulated. This one I found very interesting. But praise changes nothing, which is a very interesting start. Praise. Saying that praise will change nothing. But I see what it means. Praise changes nothing. Insults change nothing. Money changes nothing. Status changes nothing. Temptation changes nothing. And in saying his values are fixed like the North Star. Discipline beyond discipline. Never chooses between comfort and work. The choice never occurs. There is only action. His greatest weapon is not intelligence, it is consistency. Yep. Now, this one that I said was very confusing, and I think I'll have to honestly ask it. But it said he builds civilizations, not businesses. I was like, what? He builds civilizations, not businesses, not careers. Civilizations. He plants trees knowing he will never sit beneath their shade. He solves problems whose rewards belong to people centuries later. He measures success in generations. Very interesting. Now, this one was quite the powerful one. He is impossible to deceive because he first deceived himself until no illusions remained. That's very powerful. Every weakness was examined, every insecurity named, every fear dissected. He became transparent to himself, therefore, no one else could expose him. I think, honestly, in my time here, these last few weeks, I have been learning the importance of seeing, analyzing, and understanding yourself. If I could properly explain why, my goodness, it's on. But I have been slowly seeing the importance of understanding yourself and whatnot. That helped. So, some things to work on. That is pretty much the end of this video. Thank you for watching if you did watch. I doubt anyone did watch. But, yeah. These days, I try to be more action focused. I'm more aware of my thoughts and will try to redirect them. I. Well, brick by brick, as I've been saying. Very slow progress, but very much intentional. And I know I'm kind of walking in the dark, but one day my efforts may eventually pay off. Anyways, that's it. Have a good one, guys. Hey, this is the Sam Jacob. Well, of course. This is me a few hours later after that recording. I am more awake. I just had, well, I didn't just have it, but I had breakfast. I actually watched a interesting video, and that's why I wanted to record again. Right. Okay. I have these glasses on. They're initially for blue light blocking, but this is my attempt to fight whatever fatigue this is. It's nice and gray outside. I don't know. I don't have any lights on, and I am not really. I don't particularly want to use any electricity any more than I need to. But I'm trying to combat whatever this environment is that will cause fatigue. And I think, I think these glasses they're not bad. Strangely enough, like when you have, even though it's cloudy and gray outside, if you have bright light coming in, it kind of just makes like this light orange. Anyways, what I wanted to talk about was a video that I saw from Patrick Bet David, his Valuetainment channel, and it featured the guy from Morgan and Morgan. That's what we know him as. But the discussion was about Elon Musk being a trillionaire. Of course, when I heard about this, I didn't really think too much about it. I don't know, it kind of doesn't pertain to me at all. Like, that's cool, I guess. But there were a few, like, nitpickets that I guess I got from the video. And one thing that apparently was quoted from Elon was he said that the that your income is directly correlated to the problems you solve, right? The scale of problems you solve. And that had me thinking, and I think this will be a whole new junction point that we create, where I will actively seek out problems. And honestly, I think this also correlates and ties to something that I've been thinking about as the business intelligence analyst, right? And essentially, how could I prove myself as a proper business analyst if I don't exactly have results, right? Because there's something about the position, all like analyst positions, that I find weird, right? Like you could look at data and say, oh, we'll improve this, but can you really? I fail to see where they exactly have proof that what they say works. And obviously, when you work for more companies and you give your input and whatnot, and your input causes their company to grow, then you could use that as proof, right? But beforehand, how would you exactly build that credibility, or yeah, the proof and credibility? Would you like start your own business or anything? I wouldn't know. Would you let would like a small company take a risk in trusting you? But anyways, I think what I now wish to do is actively seek to solve problems. So yeah, I believe that's it. I don't think I have anything else. This is just gonna be a short little add-on. Right? Um, anyways, thank you.